Hey guys, today is day 30, so we are almost at the end of Celiac Awareness Month. I want to first of all thank you so much for all of your comments, all of your shares, I forgot to put that on mute. Okay, and for putting up with that, sorry. I don't want the phone to ring in the middle of this. So anyway, thank you guys so much for supporting this, for getting the word out, and for advocating for celiac awareness. It is definitely an important topic for people to understand better, and it's something that is not as widely or well understood as many other diseases, autoimmune things. So anyway, a little bit of background and what are we going to talk about today? So today we're going to talk about when it doesn't look like the normal celiac, because I think that that's really important for us to discuss. And we're also going to talk a little bit about non-celiac gluten sensitivity, because that definitely falls into this category, and these categories are kind of mixed together. And sorry, I got half my water here. All right, so yeah, totally just spit water out of myself. Anyway, we're just going to pretend that I'm having a mulligan here. It's just one of those days. Okay, so the reason that this is something that is important to come up is because when you look at the average time frame that it takes for a typical person with celiac disease to be diagnosed, it can take up to 6 to 10 years. It can take multiple physicians, and it has a lot to do with the fact that primary care physicians, we've talked about this before, they don't have as much training in nutrition area, but it's more so in diseases that can be managed with medicine. Celiac cannot be managed with medicine. It is a lifelong autoimmune disorder that has to be managed with food. So they get significantly less amount of training in nutrition than in other areas. They do get some training in nutrition, but celiac affects 1% of the population. Non-celiac gluten sensitivity can affect up to 6% of the population. So it's not, and that's still so much stuff is being looked into with the NCGS, because it's so not understood at this point. So anyway, this is why it's important, is actually, especially the NCGS, the non-celiac gluten sensitivity. Patients with that are actually more likely to present with symptoms that are not typical of celiac. It actually, in some of the articles that I was looking at, there was an article from the Lancet that I'm trying to get a full version of that article, but it actually did say that a lot of the time with NCGS that it actually presents as neurological disorders. So I thought that was very interesting. We do know there's that big connection between the gut microbiome and the brain, and we also know that 70 to 80% of our immune system is within the gut. So if your gut is off, then usually it's indicative that there's going to be other issues throughout the rest of your body. So who am I, though, and where am I coming at you guys with this kind of information? All right, so my name is Tracy, otherwise known as Healthy Happy Momsy. I was a teacher, pharmaceutical sales rep. I spent 17 years as a pharmaceutical sales rep, was very successful. One of the reasons I was very successful is because of the fact that I am a nerd at heart. I would actually spend time after hours looking up additional data, when challenged by my physicians, especially because I would come in with the data that was presented to me by my pharmaceutical company. And, that was what was used to basically have the argument, or to support the argument for why that medicine should be approved. But we also know that any medicine, there's the benefits, there's also the side effects. And so there can also be data out there when it comes to any type of medicine that can counter the benefits of it, as far as all the studies and information out there. So a lot of the time when I would go and talk to my doctors, they would then counter me with, well, but there's this study and there's this study. And I was the nerd that would actually go and read those studies, because I wanted to have an educated discussion with them on my next call. So I know how to look for the credible sources, things like that. And that's where I come to you guys with information, is that I will cross-reference what I'm looking at, make sure that they are credible sources, not just the mommy blogger side. But, yes, I am a mom. Yes, that puts the heart behind it. But I want to make sure that when I'm coming coming to you guys and sharing information with you, that it is sound data. So I am a certified health and wellness coach. I officially was trained 2 years ago, and then I also have training to do throughout the year to keep that up. And 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with celiac as a result of my daughter having non-typical symptoms, and she was officially diagnosed with non-celiac gluten sensitivity when I had the genetic testing done as well as the blood work done, I was diagnosed with celiac. My then husband and I assumed that, or we made the agreement that we would assume that she most likely has celiac because we didn't want her to have to go through the testing. As a reminder for the testing, what you actually have to do is reintroduce gluten back into your system for a minimum of 6 weeks. Depends on which source you're looking at for how long you're supposed to do it. I've seen 6 weeks, I've seen 8 weeks, and I've seen 12 weeks. So the bare minimum standard that you'll find documented among any of the experts is 6 weeks. But who should go to get tested? What do those symptoms possibly look like that might not be the normal symptoms that we know of? We know that the classic symptoms for celiac would be reflux and diarrhea. I know, there you go. 2 wonderful words to talk about. But those are the classic symptoms of celiac. There are a list of several other ones. So I'm pulling these up. I kind of covered them in a previous Go Live, but I think it's really worth discussing. So some of the other symptoms of celiac disease. Of course, I have my notes here, as you know. So anemia, so issues with your blood work, low iron, bloating and gas. So people talk about diarrhea. Okay, you got to go to the bathroom. Well, bloating and gas. And a lot of the time with that, that's going to lead to the other one, which would be constipation. I was a long time sufferer of constipation. So because I didn't have the typical diarrhea, constipation has become so normal in our society that with the amount of sitting, with the amount of technology, things like that, that it's really overlooked a lot of the time, that the importance of being able to go to the bathroom on a regular basis. Guys, this isn't normal. If you've got constipation, I'm not saying you have celiac, but if you have constipation, you're going to have other issues going on because of the gut microbiome issue. You do need to be going to the bathroom at least once a day. If you're not, you do need to be looking into what your nutrition is. And if you're having food issues or if you're having issues with your medicine, you need to have a talk with your doctor. Anxiety is another symptom. Delayed growth in children. Now in kids, this is actually sometimes referred to as failure to thrive. And so that is one of the first symptoms actually of celiac in children, is their failure to thrive or the delayed growth, knowing that that's not typical. They're not typical. They're falling behind on the growth charts, things like that. And the parents are saying, but I'm feeding my kid, I don't understand. And that has to do with the fact that in a lot of these, when you think about it, it's tied to the fact that somebody with celiac disease, the villi is so damaged that the body does not absorb the nutrients. So if you're not absorbing the nutrients, then that's why people think of the typical celiac as being that very thin, very frail person. However, because of the junk that's in our food these days, you don't have to be frail to have celiac. There are people who can be morbidly obese and yet they're absorbing no nutrition. They're absorbing carbs, they're absorbing fat, but they're not necessarily absorbing nutrition. So therefore they can still be, in essence, starving for nutrition. Diarrhea is the common one. Nausea. So those are more the typical of the diarrhea, the nausea. Depression is another one. Discolored teeth, enamel erosion, common cavities, and tooth formation abnormalities. Okay, that is completely, if you think about it, so let's use some logic here. If it is somebody who has the reflux, sorry, total brain fart there. If it's somebody who has reflux, then that constant reflux is going to wear away at your teeth. It's going to cause them to become discolored. So that's another issue. And I know that we're one of those societies that they're so big on, it's, I carry my Tums, my Pepcid, you shouldn't have to take that on a regular basis. If you are, you should be keeping a food journal to figure out what's triggering that, because that's not normal. And yes, stress can impact that, but stress is not the only thing. The food going in your mouth is causing that issue, and it's important to get to the heart of that. Fatigue. It's the same thing as so many, fatigue. If you're not getting the nutrients, your body doesn't have the ability to function like it should. You'll be chronically tired no matter how much sleep you get in many cases. Headaches and migraines. Oh, this is a big one. I definitely went from headache to migraine, and that was one of the symptoms for me that showed that when I was eating a lot of the processed gluten-free food that was labeled gluten-free, because I was exceeding that threshold for the, oh my goodness, for the amount of gluten that I could have in my system, although it met the threshold for being considered gluten-free because it was low enough, because of the fact that I was compiling multiple different products or multiple foods that had low amounts of gluten, I was therefore exceeding the threshold and triggering the migraines. And I was having to use my migraine injector because it was wake up and feel like I want to throw up, which meant I had the more severe migraines. Usually the other migraines I could just take an oral medicine for and I was fine. But when it was so bad that I felt like I was going to be sick, I had to use an injector. Thin bones. So the thin bones would be, sorry, I am cleansing today, so that means I need to drink a lot of water. All right, thin bones. If you're not absorbing the nutrients from the foods that you're eating, then your bones are also not absorbing them. When your bones are not absorbing them, it's going to cause osteopenia or osteoporosis, and your bones need to be protected. I sold medicines over the years that were for osteoporosis, and we know that people think of it as typical when you get older, when you hit menopause because of the changes in hormones. Yes, your bones can start to weaken, but to start losing height, if you have actually lost height, you most likely have vertebral fractures or you've got something going on with your spine. You don't just shrink when you get older. Your bones are getting thinner. It is important to make sure that you have that discussion with your physician, especially if you've started losing height before you've hit menopause or before age 65, then it's important to have a discussion with your doctor about getting a DEXA run. Skin rashes. This was so big. I feel like I'm saying, yeah, this was big. This was big for me. But skin rashes, this was, and I've talked about this a couple of times. This was one of those things that kind of started that concept that, like my dad actually said, he's like, you've always been a sick kid. You've always been sick. Well, I always had something going on and I would always analyze it instead of just brushing over it. I wanted to know what was going on. But yeah, that head to toe rash when I was in, I think it was 3rd or 4th grade, that the doctors initially called impetigo a side effect of strep throat, even though I hadn't been diagnosed with strep throat, and then put me on antibiotics. And then I remember it did some good, but it didn't really help that much because we didn't know what was actually going on. Had no clue that it was related to a food issue that, back then it was so common to be absorbing the heck out of some carbs. Infertility. I see so many women who are dealing with infertility. Again, these are symptoms of celiac. This does not mean that because you have the symptom that you have celiac, okay? Let me just be very clear with this list. But infertility, it is worth looking into what's going into your, what if you made some dietary changes? Because I know the heartache of women who have gone through the multiple treatments in order to get pregnant, who've gone through multiple miscarriages. I know it's heartbreaking. And to go and pray every month that, hopefully they spent, how many years trying not to get pregnant, then trying to get pregnant, and then month after month getting their menstrual cycle and finding out that they're once again not pregnant. It can be very totally taxing on a marriage. Joint pain. Again, when you're not getting the nutrients, there's a lot of things that can happen. So if your body can't absorb the nutrients, even though you're eating, it impacts a lot of the systems within your body. Canker sores within the mouth, another sign. And tingling or numbness, so it says resembling pins and needles, so that would be neuropathy. So if you've got neuropathy in different areas of your body, that's another symptom of celiac disease. These are just symptoms. This doesn't mean that just because you have these that you have celiac disease, but it is important to recognize what some of these are, that if you're trying different things for that symptom, because your doctor has said maybe it's this, and that medicine or whatever it is that you're trying isn't working, it's worth looking into what if it's tied in with my nutrition. It could be celiac. It could be a reaction to other food. There are food allergies and then there are food sensitivities. So the food sensitivities, that testing is still controversial. Non-celiac gluten sensitivity, I've seen several different tests that people recommend, but again, there's not yet a standard. Hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years, from what I've seen, they're looking to be able to have that. But it's a very difficult, when it comes to food sensitivities, it's a very difficult thing to address. The best thing that you can actually do if you've got a food sensitivity, you don't specifically have an allergy, if you don't officially have celiac, but you know or you feel that gluten and maybe some other things are triggering some different symptoms, keep a food symptom and a food journal as well as the symptom journal. There are some apps on the phone, and I know I've shared that with you guys before. My Symptoms is great. You can also put your medicines in there. You can put your liquid intake in there. You can put your energy level in there. You can put your sleep in there. And then you've got an app that actually kind of ties it all together and looks to see, okay, what do we see as the common thread? So it's a wonderful tool to use unless you want to do all the work yourself. And some people, that's just how they are. They're type A. That's what they want to do. Do it. So do what works for you as far as tracking that. But I thought it was important to discuss the non-typical symptoms of celiac as well as, well, the total symptoms of celiac, including the non-typical ones, because you may know there's something else going on. Your doctor may or may not be informed. It's worth having the discussion. It's worth doing the tracking so that you can feel your best. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you find this helpful. If you want to work with me on a one-on-one basis, if you're interested in some personal health and wellness coaching, I would love to work with you. I've got the rates on my website. If you want to know more about the program that I use that actually makes my nutrition much simpler, especially breakfast, then, well, I do breakfast and lunch with it. Then let's talk. I also do an intermittent fast with it. It's a very flexible program. And again, I'll post the link for that below for my website. You can check that out. And if you want to order the nutrition, you can do that. And it's also very important to mention, you guys, we are getting ready to actually start a summer fitness challenge. And so we're going to be looking at toning up and helping to lose some weight. And we're doing the easiest program we've ever done as far as the supplementation, as far as the cost. It's an awesome program. It is new, and I think it's something you would absolutely love. It's got some benefits for feeling your best, for toning up, as well as for the anti-aging. So if you're interested, drop a comment below. I would love to talk to you about it. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you guys tomorrow for the final day of Celiac Awareness Month. So tomorrow, 12:30 Eastern Daylight Time. If you find this helpful, share it with others. And if you haven't seen the news link, then, or the news article, what am I saying? The news clip. Sorry, guys. I'm just a little excited today. If you haven't seen the news clip, then check it out. I'll post that link below as well. So thank you so much for tuning in. Have an amazing day. For those of you that are in the path of those storms out in the Midwest, please stay safe. I know that also up in the Northeast, there were some issues. Guys, please stay safe. Listen to the weather warnings. Put up with it if the meteorologist interrupts your favorite TV show. It's worth saving your life. Those of us in the South, keep drinking your water. It's hot out. I'm ready for relief from some of this heat. Take care. Have an amazing day. Thank you.